Okay, I have somebody on this week who I don't just love, I admire her. I look to her for support, to talk. In fact, this is the second time we've tried to record this episode together because we just don't stop talking. And so we have rescheduled and almost rescheduled again today, but we promised that we would hit record. I am talking about my friend, one of the nicest human beings on the planet. Just you wait, you'll see. Katie Keene. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Katie is the host of one of the top 1% globally rated podcasts called Her Home and Heart. And she is host to a community of beautiful families on a journey to peace at home and generational family success. Her mission is really simple, and that is to ensure that no family ever breaks apart or destroys their relationships because they simply don't know how simple it is to create a solid, peaceful, and joyful family foundation at home. And it is simple. And sometimes it takes a little bit of work, but here we are. So Katie is most passionate about helping families create strong bonds and deep roots so parents don't wake up one day and regret broken relationships, but rather find themselves living the life that they dreamed of creating. So Katie, welcome.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here and I just adore you. This has been so much fun. I'm glad we finally hit record, but I have enjoyed talking so much.
You're just honestly truly one of my favorite people. And what I love about you is how dedicated you are to your family and how you want to share that with as many families as possible. So could we start by learning just a little bit about you and your family? Who's in it? What are you guys all about? Where are you from? All that stuff.
So we are on the East Coast of the USA, kind of outside of DC right now. I have 5 kids.
Wow.
Yes, we were a military family. So we raised these kiddos doing a lot of relocating, and they now range in age from the youngest being 8 to the oldest being 19.
Wow.
We have homeschooled them, and we have dealt with a lot of special needs among the 5. So between them,
Mm.
we have dealt with a lot of different things. And so our passion came out of the fact that we watched so many families similar to ours break apart and so many
Mm.
other families not break apart. And we were able to see the stressors that special needs life has on families. And we realized that there were simple tools that work for any family, but that really special needs families must have, and that they can have a joyful, thriving life too, amidst the challenges.
Wow. And throughout these 19 years that you've been a mom, you've homeschooled your kids too.
Yes, we never thought we would, never. That was not something we ever considered until one day it was a need. And with the military life, it allowed us to be able to move in the middle of the year and to really take advantage of the amazing places that we were and have a lot more family time together and with extended family. And it just grew from there. We committed 1 year at a time at first. And it's just become something that we are passionate about. And it's really sparked our children's passions so that they know who they are and what they want to do with their lives. So
Oh,
it's
I
really
love
cool.
that. I love that. And I like actually what you just said. You just did it 1 year at a time. And so we're going to talk about homeschooling and really some of the hacks that you have and how you've navigated through the difficulties of it. Because I too never imagined that I would homeschool. And I have been homeschooled and I'm okay with that. But I know there's a lot of parents that do want to homeschool for various different reasons. And you know, I like the idea that you're just saying 1 year at a time, because I think it can be pretty daunting to think, okay, no more public school or private school or any kind of institutional school. I'm just going to have my kids at home. But look, it may work for you, it may not work for you. And I think what you put together is a really good plan to help parents be successful while not losing it at the same time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we view that every family is very unique and every family can only make the decision for themselves. No one else can make the decision for them of what's best for their children, whether that's the food they feed them or their education or whatever. Parents who truly love their children and truly love their family are going to make the decision that's best for them.
Yeah. So, and that makes sense, right? This is not a place of judgment. Like if you do it,
Mhm.
great. If you don't do it, great. Like it works for everybody differently. I knew that I couldn't do it. I knew that I didn't have the patience. I just knew that it wasn't gonna work for me, and I'm okay with that. So, what are some of for those who are homeschooling or for those who are thinking about homeschooling, what are some of the hardest parts that we just need to know about? And then I want to get into some of the ways that you've made it work really well. So let's talk about what makes it so difficult.
Mhm. So what makes it difficult initially is the perception that it's going to be difficult. That is the, that is the hard, cold fact. Everyone who begins, including myself, thinks, oh my goodness, how am I going to do what the schools do? I already have all these
Mm,
other kids. I have a house to take care of. I have meals to make. And my big, huge quest was to figure out how am I not going to leave gaps in their education? I mean, I just could
exactly.
not figure that out for the longest time. And I was asking every single homeschool veteran that I could possibly find, whether it was people whose email list I was on, people from my past who my parents had known, or people in my military community who happened to be around us. And we just happened to be surrounded by a ton of families who were amazingly having kids going off to military academies that were like really good schools that are really hard to get into for college, and who could talk so fluently with us as adults, even when they were young kids. And we were thinking, there's got to be something to this. This is strange. And so what we ended up learning was that the biggest challenges really were getting over those mental hurdles as a parent to realize that you are already your child's teacher. From the
Mm,
moment they were born until the moment you put them in school, you were already their teacher. And so that, unfortunately, though, is truly a big hurdle. It is a big hurdle, and it's not one that's easily overcome, to get to the realization that you can trust yourself as a parent. And that the second biggest challenge is to begin to realize that this is, though we call it a homeschool, it's not school, it's an education.
mm,
And there is a difference. The school with the school building is managing so many kids that they must have rigid structure, because otherwise, how do you manage hundreds to thousands of kids? There were thousands of kids in my high school. That could not happen in a home environment. But when you have 1 to 5 to 7 kids in a home with their parent, you can then have an educational environment. That's very different. It's very much more organic. And that mentality, especially for those of us like myself, my husband, who came out of a rigid structure because we went to public school,
mhm.
well, you don't know how to imagine. Well, what does that look like? What does that mean? It's not school, it's education. What is that? And so
Yeah.
for us, that was a big hurdle. That was a big challenge. And that took a lot of learning and rolling up our sleeves and asking a lot of questions, and then letting our minds be open to the answers, and to, I have to say, kind of like creating art, which was a fun process. But that
Mm,
meant kind of letting it work itself out as we went and as we
whew,
paid close attention. And it became
yeah.
a beautiful thing. Beautiful.
That's so cool. Okay, so I picked out a couple things that I really liked what you said. You are already your child's teacher. Yes, that is so true, right? So true. And to trust yourself.
Mhm.
Huge.
It's
And
huge.
and really what you're saying too is like school is almost like the building,
Yes.
but education is what you're doing at home.
Yes.
Yeah. And within the school building, there are many other things happening than just education. So that is so important to
Yes.
hear. So good. And you're right. Like we just get in our own way. Like, how could we possibly replace what a school does? Well, we're not trying to replace what a school does. We're educating our kids. And sometimes that means we're going to bake cookies and we're going to talk about fractions.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that is one of the things people misunderstand. And you just hit the nail on the head. When you're in a school setting, sure, it takes 6 to 8 hours because they have a lot of management to do. They have a
Yeah.
lot of moving from one class to the next class, and to hand out papers and to collect papers and to stop and ask that student who's not paying attention to please pay attention. At home, you eliminate all that. So the average high school day for a high quality high school education typically ranges 4 to 6 hours. That is for a high schooler. And then you have all that extra time to go do extracurriculars, to chase passions, to take classes, to go
Mm,
work, to be in your community, to do community type of services, whether that's volunteering or whatever. And so there are a
that's an
lot of
education.
Yes. And interestingly, this is a fun fact for parents who are considering homeschooling. Colleges are looking for homeschoolers to give them scholarships now. They are
Okay.
actively looking because, on average, a homeschooler, even if the parent has a high school degree, it does not matter what type of degree, the child will, on average, have a 20 plus point higher standardized testing score in math and English.
Mm,
And they're often more well-rounded because they simply had more time outside of the school building. They were home. They were getting their education done more efficiently, more effectively, so they could go out and get those extra life experiences. And they're more likely to complete all of the college education. So they're a better representative because they've had more time to discover who they are and what they want to do with their life. So that means they're more likely to finish their college degree. Now, of course, this happens with public schoolers too. Of course it does. And many parents pour into their public school children in the afternoons and in the weekends. So I'm not in any way putting them down and telling you just the
no.
facts
Yeah.
of what's happening out there if you are looking at homeschooling. You don't have to be afraid because there used to be these old myths, tons of myths. Oh, the kids won't be social. They won't know how in the world to talk to anybody. They'll be so awkward. They're never going to get into college. They'll never get into the military. None of that's true. None of it.
Well, and I think myth or fear, same
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see how that would be scary, but colleges are looking for homeschooled
Yes.
students to give scholarships to because they are successful in university and they're 20 points higher
In standardized testing
in
scores.
standardized testing. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, amazing. and
Yeah.
and look, you are not you're not in any way saying that as a way to say that school is a problem at all,
Exactly.
but it
No.
does make us sort of think, like, what's going on in that building? How come? And look, I think we can all recognize that school is not one size fits all, and if you have kiddos like I do and you do that got extra stuff going on, sometimes school is not a place that they can thrive. And I'll say, with my oldest who has learning disabilities, who has ADHD, who's neurodiverse, school has been so hard, and it's just been our focus that we successfully have come to the end of the journey in terms of high school, like elementary school, high school. Like, he just graduated by the skin of his teeth. And all along the way, we said, look, school is not a measure of your worth. How successful you are in school is not a measure of your worth. Right. And I think that's what we need our kids to really hear,
Yes.
because the messages that they get at school are sometimes contrary to that.
And I will follow that up by saying sometimes that's the message they get in homeschool too. So
Yeah.
as parents, we have to be very aware of what message are we giving them.
Right.
So for you guys to be there saying to your son, hey, that's not what defines you. Good job. Good job. And that's what
Hmm.
all of us need to do, no matter where our children are getting their education from. We need to let them know that their worth is not defined by their output. It's because they are beautiful, worthy humans who are in our lives and we love them. It's
Yeah.
just,
And like, just so you know, I like hearing that you just told me I did a good job. Like, that's good to just especially coming from someone like you who I so love and respect. And like, for everybody listening, like, isn't she amazing? I just want to just stop and say, like, obviously, that's why I think the world of you. Okay, so we've talked about hard, but we've also talked about why it's good, and the path forward is not so daunting, because look, a quality education can happen in a few hours versus such a big long day, and you get to pepper in all of these other experiences that are wonderful as well. So, okay, what does this look like for somebody who's working? I don't want to throw sort of a wrench into this conversation, but it does make me think about how I worked full time, how even now my schedule is as I choose it as an entrepreneur and that sort of thing. But you know, do you see and do you talk to moms, and it's usually moms, right? I'm sure there's dads that homeschool too. But how do they navigate work and homeschool?
I love this question. It is one of my favorites because most people think I can't homeschool because I'm working. Well, this is something where there are going to be seasons that are more challenging, but the
Hmm.
younger the child is, the less that you need formal education anyway.
Okay.
So there are so many, if you think back, good old Mr. Rogers, he said a child's work is play. That's true. So
Yes.
introduce into their play environment all sorts of educational opportunities. Children are naturally curious. They will naturally discover anything that you leave out for them to discover, especially if they don't know you put it there for them. We used to use this method I learned about called strewing. And we would intentionally leave out educational things, whether it was an art project or a new library book or things. And I just leave it sitting around so that the children can discover it, because you know how it is with all of us humans. If it's our idea, suddenly it's a good one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, especially with young children, you can just leave these educational things out. And now suddenly you've facilitated a learning opportunity, and you can kind of, cozy up next to them and be like, oh, what's that?
Oh, you're such
And
a diabolical genius.
I know. And suddenly they're telling you what they've learned. And you will then be able to enter into that dialogue with them and go back and forth. And hey, I tell you what, I tell my children all the time, I learned more from homeschooling them than I ever learned in
Yeah.
all of my education, including college. It's a whole different level of learning. And you learn
Yeah.
so much from your kids while they learn deeply. And so, depending on the season of the child's life,
Mhm.
there are simply different techniques and methods. And because the learning process is so sped up when they're in that environment where it is really focused on learning and it's very organic and it's very built into their day. And like you said, well, we're going to bake cookies this evening, kids. Oh, we're doing fractions. Oh, we're having pizza for dinner. Oh, look, this is fractions too. How many slices of pizza are in this one whole pizza? Oh, you can fit education in everywhere. The key is to be your child's partner at learning. So,
Mhm.
what we do, because I host my podcast, I run a membership for special needs families, I'm doing all these things, and my children are still in school. Their schooling hours, because I've trained them over time to become more independent. They chase their learning. We've taught them
Mhm.
love of learning, and we want
Mhm.
to enhance these skills of self motivation in our children. So we have co-working times when they're doing their independent learning and I'm doing my working. Now that they are, the youngest is 8. So he needs a little bit more of my help and support and supervision during those times, of course, but he also has his siblings to do that with him too. So we just
Oh,
very much intertwine as a family how this will work out to make sure everyone's needs are met, mine for working, theirs for learning. And it's just really fun. And we personally look at our family very much like a business. And so we reevaluate how we're doing. How is their schooling going? How are they feeling about it? How is our business going? How are we feeling about it? How is the schedule working? What do we need to tweak? And we have family quarterly meetings. We actually celebrate at the end. This was not something we did in the early years, by the way. This is the development of time. So don't feel like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm a failure. If, someone's listening to this, no, 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 work your way into this kind of stuff. This is an advanced thing. But for us, that works really well. And then it allows us to make sure everyone is heard and seen and all the needs are met
yes.
everywhere.
Oh, I love it so much. Okay, so first I want to say yes, our kids are naturally curious. Whenever, what happens is that around the age of 2, that's when they start to trigger us a little bit, right? This is just I'm just going to take my parenting stuff here for a second. And so oftentimes they upset us because they're curious, but it doesn't look like curiosity. It looks like something that annoys us. It's behavior we don't like, right? Like we go left and they can go right because they realize, oh, they're separate from us, but that's usually curiosity. And they just don't know, they don't have the experience to know that there could be danger, right? And so then we freak out, we yell at them, we say there could be danger and they don't understand that, right? And so the other thing about school is that it can really sort of kill that love of learning, that imagination, right? Because they're told when to sit, when to stand, when to sit in a circle, when to stand in a line, when to eat, when they can play, when they have to, when they're allowed to go to the bathroom, all this sort of, stuff, right? Very, very structured. And it has to be because there's so many of them. It has to be, but it does often kill that love of learning. And so I really do love the idea of that homeschooling. And I can see you just sort of rubbing your hands like, excellent. They found the book that I wanted them to read. I would love that so much. I'm gonna do that now, even for my teenagers. I think
Right.
that's really smart. And then love what you said, be a partner in their learning. That's so great too. And actually when we were all at home, during 2020, and we were watching some YouTube videos that my son, had to watch, and we were learning things too. It was so cool, like things that weren't in our history books that were being talked about. So that was really great. I love the idea of co-working times. What a great idea for those working parents as well. And what I'm hearing is sort of the thread through all of this is some flexibility,
Mhm.
flexibility of the way we're going to learn this, the way I'm going to teach this, and also that you have input from your family. That's what I talk about all the time when I talk to the parents that I work with about, setting up family values, setting up boundaries. And that means we have to have clear communication, and family meetings are a key part to that, right? Everybody gets a chance to be heard. It doesn't mean that we're going to change what we say, but you just have a say in it, right? It doesn't mean
That's
that,
right.
but you just get a voice. And how great is that? Most of us just want to be heard. And it's the fact that we aren't heard that really hurts us. And that's where behavior starts to
That's
go sideways, right?
that's
So you are meeting a very fundamental need for your kids
absolutely.
just by having those family meetings. I love it. Love it.
Mhm. It's heart changing, just as and you teach all the time. Like when we can reach their heart, that does automatically change their behavior. And then we don't have to address behavior nearly as much because it's not the external that we really want to work on anyway in our kids or in ourselves. We want to work on the internal. And that's where the real change happens and the real bonding happens and the real connection. And so, yeah, it
It's
helps to be heard
beautiful.
so much.
Oh, it's huge. And the fact of the matter is, this goes for every single person, is that when your needs are being met, and from a kid's perspective, when a child's needs are getting met, they are much more calmer, they're happier, and they're naturally more cooperative
Mhm.
because they don't have to hustle to get those needs met. They don't see you as somebody that they can't quite bet on. They're not quite sure, are you going to meet my needs or not? And we're not talking about a need for a lollipop or a need for a balloon or a need for the next coolest pair of shoes. It is fundamental human needs: attention, affection, appreciation, connection, unconditional love, right? Those are just some of the core human needs that our kids need to have met. And just doing one thing like listening ticks so many of those boxes. So it's not like you have to go, okay, I got to meet this need, then I got to meet this need. No, there's things that we can do that meets a bunch of them at the
Yes.
same time.
Something else I learned from
Feels
Mr. Robbin
good.
was it
Sorry.
feels
Okay.
so good. No, no, it does. It feels so good. This is another thing. He's like my hero. But do you remember if you ever watched any of his old episodes that he would kneel down and look at the children? Like many times, like if you look at pictures of him, even just as his older age as an individual, he was kind of hunched over. And it's because he spent so much time looking in children's eyes. And I
Oh,
learned that many times, just like you said, just being heard, like knowing your heart has been acknowledged just by looking in the child's eyes while you listen and being on their level. Oh my goodness, can do just what you just said. It can change a
yes.
whole host of things because suddenly it's solved a whole lot more problems. You exponentially have changed the whole situation.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I always say to parents too, when you listen, repeat back what you heard them say.
Oh, yes. Active listening,
Yeah.
key and simple and free.
Yeah. So what I hear you say, and I do that naturally now all the time. Like you just talked about a bunch of stuff, and then I just repeated what I heard because I
Yeah.
also want to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get it right. And so, with my own kids, like, yeah, okay, so what I hear you saying is this. Do I have that right? And it gives them a chance to say no. Or
Exactly.
yeah. And I'll tell
Helps
you
with
what,
husbands too.
what's that? Sorry.
Helps with husbands too.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. And I think we can all probably listen to our spouses a little bit more. I'm sure we could all do that. Oh, oh. Yeah, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of that. But yes, yes, it's very true. It's very true. And we know each other's husbands too, and they are
Mhm.
wonderful men, just wonderful.
They're
So
they're fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you are talking to somebody who is about to homeschool their kids,
Mm.
what would you say to them, something to just to keep in mind, maybe above and beyond what you've already said? Is there anything, any resource, any, what would you, I mean, aside from going to your resources and your site, which is her, sorry, I just want to make sure I get it right. So it's herhomeandheart.net.
Yes, .net and then /coaching so that you can learn
Yes.
more about like the homeschool side. But really it's Linktree /family success. That is my very best place because I put all the goodies, all the coupons, I change up what's happening on there. I don't have it in the intro, Robin. I'm sorry. I need to add
I'm
it in
gonna add
there,
it.
but
It'll be in the show notes. Linktree.
yeah, /family success. It's just where I try to focus to keep everything fresh while I'm getting my website better built and looking prettier. But yeah, so I would suggest first, depending, I'll speak to people in the USA. I'll start there. People in the USA, know what your state requires because every
Oh,
state is different. So if you're considering homeschooling, what I have to do for homeschooling might look different, does look different from what someone in Texas versus Pennsylvania versus New York versus Florida would need to do.
okay.
Does not make it harder, easier. It just means it's different. So
Just
you have to
different.
learn what your state requires. For me, one of the places that I have found to be the best resource for that is a legal defense agency. It's called the Homeschool Legal Defense Agency, hslda.org. I'm not affiliated, but I have I felt like what they offer there is so great because they'll give you not only all your state laws, but all the papers too. And you can call them on the phone and they'll answer all your questions. And it's a low dollar membership. So I suggest them to all the mommies I meet who are considering this and just getting started. And then the next thing is to just begin looking into the various philosophies because as a new homeschooler, you don't know what your favorite method of teaching is. You don't know what your kids' favorite methods of learning are. And that's going to be a process. So expect the first year to not be a good reflection of what the rest of your journey will be like. The first year is just like any other learning curve, and that's okay. So if it doesn't feel perfect, that's okay. Don't worry. Let
Mm,
it go. Just try to have fun. It's an adventure. Put your adventure hat on, keep learning with the kids, and look into what philosophies are out there and try different things. If you have a curriculum that you've purchased and it's not going well with the kiddo, dump it overboard. Go find something else. Let it go. You're teaching the kid, you're not teaching the curriculum.
right. So it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that doesn't work for you. I love
And it
that.
doesn't exactly. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with your kiddo. Like that's one of the gifts of homeschooling is it can be so uniquely tailored. And that is part of why it's so much more efficient and effective. It is not a one size fits all. You
Mm,
can just say, oh, this isn't working for you. I'll tell you a quick story. My son, he was in second grade. We were sitting down with his math workbook. I had the baby playing on the floor. My daughter was doing some beads and some sensory things in the other, side of the room. We were sitting at the table trying to get through his math. He had tears streaming down his face. He had written in the front of his book, mind you, I love learning. I want my kids to learn, but we knew we had some different various special needs happening in our family. And he had
mhm.
written this, I hate math in the front of that workbook. My stress was high. I was feeling anxiety. I was thinking I was failing as a mom. I have all these other tasks. The kitchen sink is full of dishes and I'm going, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? Like I don't even know. And I'm not the one gifted in math. I married my husband who happened to have been my math tutor. So
Really? Oh, more on that later.
exactly. He was. So that tells you some about my propensity for math. So I said, you know what? Enough of this. And I closed that math workbook. I went to my daughter's backpack. I pulled out this because she was still in preschool at the time, though she was home with us that day. I pulled out the Scholastic worksheet. Now you can just go to Amazon or wherever. And I just started checking off all the math games all the things I could see that could help with math. And we spent quite a while looking at doing math games on the floor with race cars and dinosaurs and gingerbread men and all
Oh,
this other stuff. And then I started looking into, well, what's an online resource? And there were some math games that were there intentionally for curriculum purposes, but to help kids who were struggling. And it had more interventions than a tutor could have. And fast forward, we went from him sitting there, tears running down his face, me feeling stressed out, feeling like I was failing, to the end of the year. We actually, surprisingly, and I don't recommend this to everybody, but did go back to that math workbook. He was able to proficiently finish it and had an I love math. I've kept the workbook. I'm afraid because of this. Yeah, I know. In the back of the workbook, because, and to this day, even though he is an artist, he's a musician, he's an
mm,
author, math has never been his very natural, that side of his brain was never the natural. He loves it. He does not hate it. And we worked through it with peace and joy at his pace. And he's graduated from high school and doing great. So, it's one of those things where in the beginning, just be flexible, like you said. It's so worth it.
oh, I love that. So, okay, I want to recap what I heard you say, and then we're going to talk about what you have for everybody in the parent toolbox. And I just want to encourage you, even if you're not homeschooling, please have a look at this because it will help you. It will help you with homework. It will help you with all the things. And also, if you know someone who's homeschooling, please share it with them. They will love it. So first, I really love what you say. Know what your state requires if you're in the States, but if you're in Canada too, look at what the provincial guidelines are. Same difference. And then you were talking about the Homeschool Legal Defense Agency, which is hslda.org for the States, but in Canada, it's hslda.ca. And I'm sure if you're listening in any other country in the world, first of all, you can go to those sites and still pick up a lot of great, useful information, but also you can look for your own local resources. I guarantee you've got them. And I think it's so important for you to do what Katie just said, and that is to look for these different philosophies. I didn't know that existed. I literally had no idea. So I love that you say that, and give yourself grace as you would with anything that you're doing with your kids. Grace is so important. Empathy for yourself, empathy for your kids. We're doing this together. We're in the trenches together. Do this with some grace. It's okay to make a mistake. It is a shared human experience. We all need self-compassion.
Huge, hugely
Huge. So
important.
Katie, you are so wonderful. So can you please tell us what's in the parent toolbox for
Yes,
people listening?
I would love to. So I collected basically my very top tips, not just for homeschooling, but if you're homeschooling, there are 5 of my how to embrace a heart-centered education
Oh,
tips in there. They are just fantastic. And then I also, as a bonus, put in there the 3 foundations of a united home. So whether you're homeschooling or not, and especially if you have a special needs kid or somebody who does, these will double apply. They will work for
mm,
anybody. But if you're in a home where you have the extra stress and the extra concerns and the extra workload, you will want to read these. They are what our family learned. It's basically like our home ecosystem. And I just break it down into a quick blurb there of each thing. This will not take you long to read. And I give some
mm,
pages for reflection and notes and thoughts. And but it's just like our best kept secret for what's kept us going with 5 kids
mm,
through the military, with special needs, with all the stuff that we had on our plate. Some really important tools that will
mm.
completely support and change your perspective for the better. That's our hope. That's what it's done for
Thank
others.
you. Thank you so much, Katie. And, first of all, I just love you. I love you so much. And
It's
and from
mutual.
my heart, I don't just love what you say. I love who you are. You've got the most awesome husband too, beautiful 5 kids. Like, you are just so wonderful. Thank you for giving this to us, because I know you could easily charge for that as well. Like, the lessons that you're sharing have taken you years to learn and perfect. So that is such a huge gift. And of course, you go to the parent toolbox. It's totally free to sign up and not just take on what Katie has, like download what she has. It's for, there's hundreds of tools in there from myself, from these brilliant guests that I have. So www.parent-toolbox.com. Please just join the membership. You get a new tool every week. It's incredible. And I just want to say thank you so much for who you are, for what you do. And please know that Katie is available for you if you want to even join a community that she is hosting, where you can just learn with other moms too who are going through this, especially if you have a child with extra needs, with special needs. Katie has lived many lives through her kids and the experiences that she's had. We didn't even touch on that, and I can tell you her story is pretty incredible, and she just wants to help you. And so again, Linktree/family success is where you can find her, but also her homeandheart.net/coaching. Please look Katie up. If you want to find her, you can reach out to me. I will send you her way. She is exactly the person who you see here today. So
Thank you, Robbin.
thank you
I
for being
adore you
here.
too. And I truly want to serve. I want to shortcut the pain and
Yeah,
the struggle that, we went through and that we saw so many other families go through, because I know that with a helping hand, it can be so much better.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. And I hope everybody loved this as much as I did.
Thanks for having me, Robbin.